It is time for Overrated, Underrated here on Canucks Central. Hit the music. We've got producer Josh Elliott Wolf and producer Elon with us today as well.
Hello.
Behind the glass and ready for another award-winning edition of Overrated, Underrated.
I like how you said another. Yes.
You give us the topics, and we debate if they are overrated, underrated, or, on the off chance, perfectly rated.
We will start with this one from Brando. Trading Demko before he's due for a raise and getting a solid package back if Seelovs looks like the real deal.
I think it's an underrated idea a year from now.
It's, look, I don't want to accuse Canucks fans of looking too far into the future, but are we looking too far into the future with these types of ideas?
Yes. Yes, I mean, we'll talk to Woodley coming up in a bit, and I think Artur Silovs has a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
If he completely hits everything, is his potential what Demko is today?
He's playing incredibly well at the Worlds. The Worlds could be an indicator of where his trajectory is as a goalie in the pro world, but it's not something you can bank on as early as next year.
No, I think I'm not against the idea of trading anybody like we talked about, and especially when it comes to trying to win, depending on the value you get. But Demko's 27, has 3 years left on his deal, right?
Yep.
I don't think you're giving him another contract. The only way you're giving him another contract is if his play has dipped and you can get him back for cheap and he's here to be a tandem with the other guy, right? But when he's going to be 30 years old, and let's say he has 3 really good seasons, are the Canucks giving him like whatever he's going to be demanding at that point or commanding on the market?
I'm sorry. I am never paying. I can't see myself ever advocating to pay more than like 6, 7, 8% of the cap to one goalie.
And it depends on how high the cap goes. But if we're talking about Demko signing a contract, that's going to be, his contract now is 6% of the cap, which is
and it
perfect.
feels great.
It's a great number,
Yes.
right? If that number goes to 8 or 9, and we're talking about a number that's going to be 8 million, 9 million, and it's into his 30s, it doesn't age well for goalies. You and I were talking about Carey Price. He has 3 years left on his contract at $10.5 million.
Yes. And I know people are saying, well, the Bobrovsky contract is worth it for Florida now because of this one playoff run. It's like, great. Nobody expected this playoff run to come.
Right. And, guys in their 30s. So I'm not even saying trade Demko today, but I'm saying that's a reality you're going to be faced with probably by 2025. Like, I don't think you worry about it in this year. Like, I think you get through this year. You can even get through next year. But once you get to 2025, you have to make a decision. It's where are we? Can we win with this guy? And we go all in with him this 1 year and try to win? Or do we move him before we give him the contract extension we're not going to give him? I think it's a good question. I think we're a year or two away from really having to face it.
The thing about Demko right now and his number and why I think this is a little bit overrated, I am of the mind, yes, are you confident enough in yourself to be able to build an environment or create an environment that is more goalie friendly than we've seen here in Vancouver over the last couple of years? And Rick Tocchet is trying to do that. He's trying to put that system in place. And we saw a little bit of that starting to happen towards the end of last season. But a lot different to do it over the course of a full 82, as we know. And 2, even on the off chance that you are able to do that, are you still going out and finding, because I don't see Silovs as the guy as early as next year, no matter what.
Not next year.
How are you doing better than what you have with Demko for $5 million? So that's the hard part. Even in all this, you create the environment, all this stuff, are you still finding something that's better than Demko, or can at least give you decent value for the $5 million that you're still having to go out and commit to that position?
I don't think it has to be Demko.
Yeah.
Right? It has to be that level of play, for instance. Like, I don't think it has to be that level of play if you're maximizing the asset and you're getting back, say, a difference-making top 4 defenseman and another guy that helps you out. Then your team is getting so much better that you don't need a Demko, but you need a guy that can give you, 85% of that?
Yeah.
You can get there with, say, the evaluation that we've seen from Ian Clark in this goalie department in Vancouver, which has been their strength. I'm at a point, as long as Ian Clark is here, that I'm not overpaying any single goaltender. If that's the confidence you have in being able to develop goaltenders, that's the one position you're not overpaying for.
And look, you should be willing to trade anybody. But the offer has to be undeniable in order to move off of Demko. Like
For
we're
instance-
talking to Simon Nemec or something really nice.
Yeah, and I think it would have to be that, or like we talked about from say the LA Kings, where
Yeah.
they're giving you a first-round pick and 2 of their really high-end young prospects,
maybe like a Helga Grans or
plus somebody
Yeah.
else who's really good, right? Like one of their higher-end guys, or a good young player, for
Yeah.
instance, right? Whether it's a Sean Dursey or somebody else, in addition to those assets, you're talking about that's a compelling package, right? I don't know if anybody's doing that. And if you're not doing that, you're probably
what
not
goalie
trading it.
gets traded for that kind of a package these days?
Now, and that's why I don't punt on Demko now. I think in the next 2 years, you don't worry about it. You use him, you do everything you can, and then you make a decision before the final year. If Silovs is truly knocking on the door, then you can maybe maximize that asset.
Next.
All right, the next one. Speaking of Silovs, Keyshawn, having a good run at the Worlds like Silovs or Garland, overrated or underrated?
I think generally anything that happens at the World Hockey Championships is overrated. And I'm not
Yeah.
besmirching the tournament. I think it's actually a great experience for guys. And anytime you speak to guys who've been on the tournament, putting on, their country's jersey means a lot. It's a great tournament to be part of. It seems like a lot of fun. But in terms of extrapolating that and making these grand assessments on player projections and trajectories, I would be very hesitant. I'd say overrated.
I would say if a GM is changing his mind on Connor Garland or goes there and watches Connor Garland and says, that's a guy we got to go out and get this summer, I probably don't want that guy being the GM of my hockey team.
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a slight to Garland. I just mean it's a completely different style of hockey. Like they're playing on the big ice. It's a different level of player that's playing in this tournament. It's all like some teams are okay, some teams are not very good.
Canada's
when you're playing
team
like
is
Hungary.
Canada's team is pretty bad this
Yeah,
year.
Canada's team is not very good.
For their standards.
Yeah, so it's just I can't imagine a GM going there and being like, "Oh wow, look at how great this guy is." A guy that's an already established commodity at the NHL level, like a Connor Garland, and being like, wow, this guy is a much better player than I ever thought he was because
Yeah.
I saw him do this at the World Championships. I don't see a GM doing that.
Yeah, only the Mark GM. Who's the Mark GM?
We'll find out.
There's a few of them. Pierre Dorian? No.
Austin in Langley. Kyle Dubas meeting with Sidney Crosby. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Like anytime you get to chat with Sid the Kid, I'm sure that's a pretty cool experience. right?
I'd love
You
to.
think they like exchanged Tim Hortons hockey cards or anything like that, or?
No, probably not.
He only does that with Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
That's him and McKinnon's thing.
Only the Cole Harbor guys can do that.
Could you imagine Dubas like, can you sign this for me though? Big fan growing up.
I mean, anytime like is Kyle Dubas not like any of us? Like if you had a chance to meet Sidney Crosby, would you not be super cool about it? Get ultra nerdy with him with some hockey discussions?
Well, of course you would. I mean,
Yeah.
of course. I mean,
Sat would be like, how do you cut the guy's arms off when you get into a board battle? Like what's your technique there, Sid?
how do you lean on guys? What do you see defensively?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sat's gonna like pull an iPad out of somewhere. Like, hey, look at this.
So what do you
Wanna
think?
watch some plays together?
I've been dying to know on this play. What are you thinking?